gotta get out of here. Recently, I took a flight to DC to reconnect with my old roommate from LA. We were both teachers living together in Hollywood at the age of 22. 7 years later, we're both in completely different careers. He works in politics. I make manosphere videos on the internet. Visiting him served as a bit of a reminder of my feeble attempts at dating in those LA years, an endeavor that had one of the lowest ROIs out of any of the pursuits of my life. I never got anywhere with it. I'm not saying it's good to be single forever, but one of the key regrets of my life was putting a lot of effort into trying to get a girlfriend, trying to date, in the years where it wasn't a very high ROI activity for me. In this video, I'll break down 4 reasons why it might be more optimal for your life right now to stay single. The first is that dating is a struggle if you're not high value. And I can say this because when I was 22, I was a pretty good looking guy, in my opinion, okay? On some level, I thought that might be enough for me to get attraction. It kind of wasn't. Maybe it would have been better in a smaller city like Minneapolis or a small town, but it definitely wasn't enough in Los Angeles. I didn't have much of a physique. I had really narrow shoulders and I was constantly broke. I didn't have a lot of money. And also at 22 years old, every time you're going into a club or a bar or a networking party, you're the youngest person there and you don't have a lot of experience. You don't have a lot of things you can bring up to talk about in terms of the things you've done and the experiences you've had. I would try to concoct conversation out of thin air, and as a lifelong actor, I've been fairly decent at that. But the truth is, I wasn't sufficiently high value. I definitely wasn't in the top 10%, and that made matters very difficult, old sport. This is really important because dating is genuinely difficult until you develop the traits, the conduct, the business, the health and the fitness habits that make you objectively awesome. For those of you who have seen any of videos by Andrew Tate, like him or hate him, I think he does make one point that I generally agree with. And that is that most women, they don't ever have to be lonely. There will always be someone in a woman's DM, probably. Now, they might not be the options that they want necessarily, might not be the guys that they want to be seeing in their DMs.
There's no way you think DM stands for dick message.
What do you think it stands for?
Direct message.
But women always have some degree of options. Whereas men, if we are not sufficiently high quality, there's going to be no one in your DMs. Men who aren't high value experience true loneliness. And that's why it's important to continue to work on yourself and make progress, because the price of not being high value is loneliness. To add just a little bit more to this point, I think this also applies for career success. I especially feel this because I would often apply for a ton of jobs that I wasn't super qualified for, but as someone who wanted to increase his salary, one of the first things I would do is just apply for jobs, just blast through job applications, because it was kind of easy to do so. Same thing went for my acting career. I would reach out to casting directors and agents through email and postcards all the time, but I really didn't see a lot of results with this. And in many ways, this is very similar to being low quality, but going up to 100 women and trying to date. I mean, you could improve your pitch every time you did cold approach, and I imagine there is a lot of value that comes from cold approach actually, but you'd be improving the pitch. Instead, if you invested the majority of your time, both with work and with dating, in just improving the offer, which is to say, building up your body of work, building up a portfolio of work, that always leads to ultimately the most high ROI results. Every time I've gone for an agent, it hasn't happened. But if I've worked on this channel and put up a great comedy sketch that flexes my acting skills a little bit and maybe it grows the channel some amount, somehow people who are from the industry or people I could collaborate with to make better projects, better stories, that always comes about when I work on my body of work. And this is very similar to dating. It's instead of working on the pitch, just work on the offer being you getting better with time. The second point I want to make here is that going monk mode for a spell feels good. Now, the unfortunate truth about this advice about how it's beneficial to be single for a long period of time is that you get lonely, and we are unfortunately social creatures. We are deeply wired to crave intimacy and connection. And Hamza had made a great point about this in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He put eating, drinking, using the toilet, sleeping, and then intimacy. He put all of those on the bottom rung. Like, they are all equally important to survival. Like, it's very important to have intimacy in your life. But that being said, that I think there are spells of your life where you can go without romantic intimacy. And you know what? You can be fine. In fact, you can get a lot of the need for connection through other ways. For me, a big part of this in recent times has been through people I meet at the gym. And in fact, you can find a lot of joy and peace in solitude. More so, you'll find that periods of solitude will make it really easy for you to make progress in your career. On a different point, you'll see a lot of guys in steady relationships, and you'll see that it's a lot easier for them to get complacent about their goals. I noticed this especially with guys who have girlfriends who are sort of like out of their league. Maybe they were like dating from high school onwards and they stayed together. Those guys often, they don't continue to work as much on their fitness or on their career progress because a lot of that motivation, that fire in the belly is dead. Like, it's inert. These dudes, they take on more cheat meals. They take a night off from learning how to code because they just rather hang out with their girlfriend. Even though there's like pain that comes from solitude, it also is a lot easier to be a killer when you're just on your own. You've got nothing attached, nothing tying you down. And maybe not forever, but for like certain spells of time, this can be like a great way to make progress. I mean, I really do think that solitude and focus will get you towards what you want a lot faster. Whatever your goals are, chances are you can make more pointed, supercharged efforts in achieving them if you remain unattached. The third point I want to make here is actually a direct attack against the apps. The apps weaken and distract you. I think for the majority of people, when they talk about dating or like they're starting to date again, people are talking about the apps. Like, the apps are the means by which people date. You match with people on the apps, you set up dates, and then you go on those dates. And there's been a lot of research that shows that it's only a very small proportion of men who get matches and interaction on the apps. For a good portion of men, they are a waste of time, and especially they're a waste of money. Like, if you want to get any matches, for a lot of guys, you have to be on the pro program and like be spending money on super likes and roses and whatnot. Now, I'll be honest, when I first started using apps at the age of 25, I actually had a decent amount of success with them. Like, when I would set up a profile, I would probably get like 20 matches on the first day. And then if I spent some time every day swiping, I'd probably get like 5 matches a day. And for a spell of time, for like 6 to 8 months, I would just like go on dates off the app and I would meet people. I think there was some degree by which that dating spurt of my life led to some kind of like social growth. But at the same time, I have a beef against the apps, and I sort of regret how much I relied on the apps for my romantic life. And this is for 2 reasons. The first is that they're really addicting. They're like annoyingly addicting. Even if you're someone who like resolves to not get addicted to them, you somehow find yourself just swiping at all hours of the day. And I think this is just because there are true marketing geniuses who like create these products, and their whole objective is to keep you on the platform. And it's kind of like hard to get out of it. You're like constantly curious, like, oh, did I get a new match? You end up going back to the app. And I know for a fact that it got in the way of me working on the things that were actually more important to me, just because I was like, just found myself swiping again. The second problem I have with apps is that they kill your need to exercise courage. And this is something, courage is a trait that is actually, it's something that bleeds in through every aspect of life. You don't realize it at first because so much of life has become so convenient. But cold approach pickup, or like the way people had to do it back in the day, where you just sort of like find a way to start a conversation and get to know someone, there's like an exchange of energy there that feels more authentic, that feels less superficial, even though I guess to some degree it is a little bit of a superficial effort because you have nothing to go off of. But going up to someone you find attractive, letting them know in a chivalrous, debonair manner that, hey, I freaking think you're cute and we should maybe go on a date or get coffee. I think there's something gained there. There's a level of competency that is gained by doing that. And to be fair, I haven't done a lot of this in my life, but I'm trying to find reasons to exercise more courage because I think it's going to be really important if I want to like achieve everything I want to achieve in life. And taking efforts to exercise courage, to exercise that sense of game, it's a choice you have to make because you could get away with a life without it, but you would not be reaching your potential if you did so. Now on that note, I'll take a quick pause here before getting to the final point to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Scentbird. Scentbird is like a subscription service for cologne and perfume. Now, as a younger guy, like in college, I actually had this desire to like wear cologne. Unfortunately, cologne is like, it's like $100 a bottle, and I could definitely not like afford anything like that back in those days. Now I have a couple of scents that I use, like big bottles, but I also am curious to like try out new scents. And so Scentbird is a way where you can try out colognes that you might be curious about. You can just go on their site, pick up the couple of scents that you want in your next box, and they'll ship like smaller sample sizes to you that you can then use and try out. So I've been trying out Prada Luna Rosa because I'm actually curious to see if I can get Prada as one of my videography clients. Like that would be a dream brand to work with. I'm also trying out Dolce & Gabbana The One and Terre de Hermes. They also have scents that are both boutique and like commercial brand. So they have some really high-end scents. Like they have Aventus Creed that you could get as part of their subscription service. Definitely my scent of choice these days is the oceanic version of Prada Luna Rosa. I just love the sea, the conceptual idea of the sea. And with spring and summer around the corner, I do kind of like that clean oceanic scent. I want to capture that vibe a little more. In fact, I was even thinking about getting into sailing a little bit this summer. And so as someone who's trying to get more into the cologne game, just a little bit, maybe as a way of amping up my style and grooming, smell is like a very powerful way of leaving an impression on someone. So if you're going to try a little bit of cold approach, it might help to have those pheromones running in the ether, you know, an accelerator to get the girl. There's a generous volume of perfume or cologne given with each bottle, so it'll last you a good number of sprays, enough to test out the scent and see if you like it. And with that, there's just a sense of variety. So if you're going out on a date, it could be a great way of testing out a new scent, impressing someone. Just on a personal note, it's something that I just enjoy doing. If you click my link in the description box and use my code at checkout, you'll get 55% off of your first fragrance. That's only about $7 for your first month. I couldn't recommend them enough. Thank you, Scentbird, for sponsoring this video. The final point I want to make here is that if you don't necessarily commit to the first person that you might go on a date with, it gives you an opportunity to cement your values and personal philosophy about dating. My business coach is John Sonmez from the channel Bulldog Mindset, and he came up with a great analogy about this. He said that if you try a burrito for the first time, and the first place you go to for a burrito is Taco Bell, and you think it tastes good, you might say to yourself, wow, this is a great burrito. I love burritos. And you know what? I love Taco Bell. It's like the best place for burritos. I'm like, I don't see the need for anything more than this. This is fantastic. I'm a Taco Bell man through and through. And then later on, you might recognize that you were dealing with fast food. It wasn't gourmet. It wasn't like the best you could do. It wasn't something worth committing to. You just chose it because it was there. That's like a crude way of what a lot of guys end up doing. The first person who offers them intimacy and connection, they basically go with the first option who accepts them. Maybe out of insecurity, maybe out of a fear that this is the best they could ever do, like nothing else will come along if this doesn't work out. This is not a good perspective to actualizing yourself, and it's not a good perspective to long-term dating. Which is to say, just because the title of this video is about why it might be beneficial to stay single, I don't necessarily think you should not be expending any energy in romantic pursuits. I think with your inspired leisure, after you've done a lot of focused work on work, I think it's actually good to date and to try to get to know different people. Not necessarily to like get laid or satisfy your ego or something, but really just to evaluate what you're looking for. You know what you want by like talking to different people. Dating different people gives you the chance to recognize what you're looking for, what traits you value, the things that are non-negotiable for you. It gives you experience. Now, granted, I would only enter this phase of my life where I'm talking to multiple people if different people are interested in me. Like if I were to try this when I was 22, I don't think it would pan out for me. It would have just been a waste of time in that era. But later on, you know, I think it was probably good that I tried dating different people for a little bit of time because it just gives you a chance to figure out what you're about when you talk to different people. That being said, it's a tough balancing act because a lot of dating can be just a waste of time. Like, I realize now as an older guy, you shouldn't just date to satisfy your ego. You should really like look at people as human beings and see if you see a genuine match in them. If you see some sort of camaraderie or community or connection between you that's genuine, because ultimately maybe that's what's more fulfilling. But what I will say is that there are seasons of life, and the universe will sort of point you towards what season you're in. Especially if you feel like dating right now is a frustration, or maybe you're like me when I was 22, there's like not a lot of interest right now. As a guy, that changes as you get better with time. I think it invariably is true that if you keep working on yourself, time will be good to you. Time rewards people who put the work in. And so nothing will supercharge your growth more than that period of monk mode, solitude, focus. If that's what you're being directed towards, embrace it. If you're new to this channel, my name is Nikhil. This channel is a combination of video essays, lifestyle challenges, alongside the occasional comedy sketch. If any of that appeals to you, consider subscribing. I also have a newsletter, which I'm really pumped on these days. I put out one weekly newsletter that captures some sentiment that I'm feeling related to cinematography, career progress, relationships, like becoming a top tier 1% individual. I also talk about the books I've been reading and the tech I've been using lately. I think it's a really worthwhile newsletter, so if that's something you're curious about, it's completely free. You can check it out. It's in the description box. I'm also on Instagram at nrajapande. You can find me there. I put up one post and one reel a week related to trying to give some kind of value in the domains of fitness and photography. So you can check that out if you'd like to connect with me further. And lastly, we have an app, the Transmuted App, which is a habit tracker that I'm really excited about. We're up to 800 users, and our goal is to get to 1,000 users by the end of May. You get a 7-day free trial, and then it's $3 a month after that. And all of the revenue that we will start bringing in from the app, we will be putting right back into it to make it a better product. So it's like kind of my baby product that I'm very passionate about, and I'm excited to keep developing it. But with that being said, for those of us who use the pre-seasons of our life to become stronger, to us I say greatness is coming. Cheers.